Hello, happy bros. Hey, you're about to get a face full of the Ken Bozak. He's a mentor. That's what I heard. He's a connector. Oh, yeah. He's a brilliant leader. I've seen it. He's Ken Bozak. Oh, happy bro. You gotta get some Bitcoin and hold it. Happy bros. You gotta get those NFTs and you gotta hodl that stuff. You gotta hodl it. 'Cause I'm Ken bro. We got your Bitcoin, bro. He's an original. Buy some NFTs and hold them. How many times does he have to tell you? Going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. Going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're gonna get real high. 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 Yeah, we're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. Bro, we're going to the moon. Oh yeah, we're going to the moon. We're gonna get real high. Real high. Yep. Real high. Hello, happy bros. Come get your Ken Bozak.
And we're live, bro.
Hey, we're live. Welcome to the show. I'm Nathan McCrory, as you know, here with Ken Bozak. Today is my co-host. And our guest is Alan Tratner. Yay!
Thank you, bro, for coming on the show. Much appreciated.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here, and we appreciate your time. Why don't you intro yourself so people kind of know a little bit about you?
Thank you, Nathan and Kenneth. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah.
The little mark of my semi-fame is that I was involved in 1970, 69, 70, in helping found the original Earth Day that has now become the largest celebrated civic event in the world, more than 192 nations, more than 1 billion people. And it caused some pretty interesting things to happen that the rest of the world has spread to the rest of the world. And that was before Earth Day, there were no such things as Clean Water Acts and Clean Air Acts and solid waste and recycling and laws to protect the environment, and all that was really not in existence. And because of a terrible event that happened in 1969, on top of the great event that mankind had launched itself, the Apollo mission, to the moon and came back successfully, that incredible technological endeavor that NASA did with so many spin-offs that come. Most people don't understand how tremendous that effort, even though it was a Cold War competition between the United States and the Russians, it turned out to be spectacular for the things that it contributed to health and environment and energy and communications, and just the thousands of spin-offs that have been commercialized and changed our lives. Even the internet and the computers, our phones right now have much more computing power than the entire Apollo program was to go to the moon and back. It's just pretty spectacular. But what happened is I was in high school in the 1960s. And if anybody knows the history of the 60s, it was such a decade of change in this United States and around the world. You know, the march, I marched with Martin Luther King Jr. and for civil rights, anti-Vietnam War, anti-nuclear war movements, peace movements. All that was happening, and we were so engaged in that. There were like college teach-ins that they used to call it about these kinds of subjects. And what happened is in in the late part of the 1960s, I had won a scholarship of all things with General Motors when they used to say that what was good for General Motors, it was the #1 corporation in the world at that time, was good for America. So I won a scholarship to come from Detroit in Michigan, where I was born, beautiful lakes, you know, the incredible Great Lakes. And I was a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout, and I loved nature, knew about nature. And I came out to California to be ostensibly end up being a transportation, industrial, and graphic designer. I had won a lot of scholarships and scholastic arts and science awards when I was a kid growing up. And then, so it propelled me to come out here. I was the youngest student ever to go to the College of Design that they wanted me to go to. But what was remarkable is while I was finishing high school, I came to understand that it was pretty terrible that days would go by where we couldn't go to school, that we could barely breathe, and our eyes were just tearing and we were miserable because of the smog in Los Angeles. There were no emission controls. Cars were just, you know, getting 10 miles per gallon and just polluting all over the place. And it was pretty sickening. And I decided to form a little, essentially an environmental activist group. And it was called Environmental Action Group. And we
is people who give a shit about Earth taken already?
Yeah. It really, what was interesting is that they were as motivated as I was to do something about pollution. And that was affecting all of us and our health and everything else. We didn't have the full picture at that time, but we just wanted to do something in the community. So it started to gather momentum. And one of the first things that we created, now this is just before the event I'm about to explain to you that catalyzed the actual creation of Earth Day, is that we produced a little booklet called Personal Solutions. And we took the best of our minds and talked to scientists and everybody we could find about what could people do themselves in their homes and their purchasing power and their decisions to help the environment and reduce pollution. That's what it was all about at that time.
What were a couple of those measures?
Oh gosh, there was, you know, well, it's funny, we were just ahead of the curve because we were telling people, you know, don't use pesticides in your backyard. Use natural, biological. There was all kinds of books and information about that was basically not public, but it was available about how you'd use bio-based materials that were non-toxic, you know, those kinds of things, and how to save water. You know, we put a brick in your toilet, the toilet tank, and that would save the flushes, you know, and that kind of crude approach, but there was a whole list of those, and it attracted some media attention to me and my organization. And based on that platform, along comes this incredible historic event and I was actually working with one of the Rocketdyne engineers on some of my inventions.
That's awesome.
And they went to, you know, the Apollo comes back, and then all of a sudden in 1969, the same year, is this horrible, horrendous Union Oil platform blowout in Santa Barbara, California.
That's awful.
Yeah.
And you know, I rode up there on my little 200 mile per gallon little Honda motorcycle and stood there with all the volunteers on the miles and miles of beaches, and the oil slick was everywhere, and the ocean was dark, and all the birds and fish were dying, and right in front of them, it just broke down and fell and had tears and said, "This is it. We've got to do something about it." It actually was the catalytic moment that caused what they call the modern environmental movement around the world. In Life magazine at that time, the front page, you know, was all about that. And Senator Gaylord Nelson at that time, a tremendous figure, a legend in caring about the planet, he was known as the conservation senator, had seen these teach-ins at the colleges and said, you know what we got to do? And that's the brilliance of what he came up with. We should do some event that will be across the country that will be teaching. It was a teaching about the environment, what was happening to the planet. And it ended up being called Earth Day, and it turned out to be on April 22nd, and I should know.
And 1970, right?
1970, and at the same,
it came from like the same era as Woodstock. So you had this peace and love stuff combined with, you know, this need for environmental change. It was perfect timing if you think about it. You had a lot of people that felt empowered, that were ready to get out there and make a difference.
Also, I guess like the perfect timing of the, you know, catastrophe, right? I mean, it's almost without catastrophe, there aren't really precautions. People just wait until those tipping points to really start to do something that will help prevent another tipping point of the same kind. Rather than take preventative measures, they're more proactive than preventative. And without that oil spill at the time of, like, you know, Nathan's talking about, where everything kind of resignated, it seemed like everything really did line up very well with what you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, you're absolutely catalytic moments in human history. That's why I said we came out of being young activists in the 60s anyway, and we had that background, and all of a sudden here was the opportunity. And then they proposed doing in 1970, April 22nd, the first Earth Day, a big deal in Washington, D.C. with Senator Gaylord Nelson and Dennis Hayes, who helped run that whole thing. But those of us that were in big territories, like in Colorado and Denver and things like that, and I was Los Angeles and the whole kind of central coastal region, we put on this mega event. I was shocked and surprised that we had such a rallying of people to show up. You know, it was 20 million people on that day in 1970 showed up in the United States that were part of the original Earth Day. And that started that same year, by the way, with the Republican administration, which is kind of interesting. Yes. That's when, I think it was Nixon, that's when the EPA was first started, the Environmental Protection Agency, and I knew William Reckles' house. I happened to, because of all these things catalytically coming together synergistically, I was on the staff of a brand new fledgling magazine, national newsstand called Environmental Quality magazine. And my little organization was getting propelled. So on that, all this happened in 1970. And so the laws came into effect, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the EPA, a lot of things. And then states were engaging in that. And since the federal level had done it, and it spread to the rest of the countries of the world. And that's how you end up having, you know, 51 years later, where we are right now, the, you know, climate accords, the Paris Treaty. Thank God for the Biden administration.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like nowadays a lot of people would not associate the Republican Party with environmental good or change, you know. So it's kind of interesting. Another weird thing that came out of that time period, I guess. It's like
yeah, absolutely. And there, you know, listen, and I'm going to get into that, I guess, a little bit. Behind me, if you can see, is the original Earth Day flag. And what was incredible, there's two pictures that they say are the most important that ever happened to mankind, photographs. And that is when, as they were leading up to the Apollo manned mission, NASA had that shot of the whole Earth. And for the first time in history, we saw this incredible, as Buckminster Fuller, who I actually worked with until he passed away, he did the foreword of a book for me called Energy, Earth, and Everyone, where I talked about all the energy options for the planet that were renewable, et cetera. But Buckminster Fuller coined the phrase spaceship Earth. And it really is, now that we're all excited about SpaceX and exploration of Mars and Moon and everything else, it's kind of interesting because that's what we're on. That's our life support system. Air, water, food, you know, everything. The fact that it's the blue marble, the water planet, it's in that Goldilocks zone that the astronomers talk about, that we're just far enough from the sun and all that, that, you know, we're not melting or like burnt Venus or something like that. So it is spaceship Earth. And it has something called the biosphere. It's a thin layer of all the life that's on this planet. It's not very big. but in terms of the physical size of the region. In fact, up on my wall, I wish I could actually do that with my phone. My goodness. Thanks to Kenneth and everybody. This is one of the pictures I did called the Biosphere for the first International United Nations Conference on the Human Environment. That was the result that we held in 1972 in Stockholm, Sweden. And what happened, and this other poster that's kind of hard to see right now, I guess, but that's the thinker, too late to doer. What an amazing thing. And on its head, it says pollution, starvation, and war. And that was my activism, being through my artistic talents and everything, starting to weigh heavily on me. And they commissioned me. I got a grant to do. It took me half a year to get prepared for the United Nations conference and on the human environment. And I did this series called Technology versus the Environment. And it was about everything that mankind was doing, including weaponry and pollution and everything you can imagine, and the biosphere, about this precious spaceship, it said, the life support system of Spaceship Earth. And then the poster, that took off like I never would believe. It became hundreds of thousands were distributed, and there's an international museum devoted to political art. And I was
that's awesome, by the way, too. Like, a lot of people that watch are really big fans of art. We're in the NFT art space. A lot of people that are in that space, and that thing would make an incredible piece of NFT art, and would be awesome to combine.
You could probably sell another 100,000 of them as NFTs.
It'd probably go pretty quickly too.
Well, maybe that's a brilliant idea. We should work. The first one was a teach-in, as I just mentioned. This last year, which was horribly, horribly affected by the terrible worldwide pandemic, the recession globally, everything that has happened, the killing of so many people. Look what's happening in India, even worse. That recession prevented us. On the 50th anniversary of Earth Day last year, we were prepared to have hundreds of thousands of people in Hollywood and Los Angeles even exceed what we did the first time out. 1970 was all about, the theme was action. The whole Earth Day network around the world was going to be all about action, and it was scuttled. We still held some planetary summits, and some great things happened, but nothing like we had intended to happen to really push the action side of Earth Day to a level that was going to be incredible. But in this year, 2021, the 51st anniversary of Earth Day, we've had, including your attention to us, incredible reaction. And coming out of the pandemic, slowly and surely, be sure to get vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated. What's happened is government and the world, and thanks to young Greta and everybody else, they understand. And I worked with Al Gore when he was vice president. When he basically said the sky's falling, and with the inconvenient truth about climate. So climate to me adds up with all the things we were concerned about from the very beginning, which was energy, pollution, water, hunger. They say the three major crises facing mankind right now that we're not really figuring out yet were the issue of energy that drives everything, and where we get the energy and how we pollute it. And then the next thing was water. As we know, there's droughts all over the place. It's getting worse with climate change. And the last thing was food. How do we feed 7 billion and exploding and exponential growth populations without, and some World Watch Institute believes that we're already exceeding our capacity to have sustainability, which is kind of sad. It's one of those critical things that's been held up, as you pointed out so well a moment ago. The pollution event, how horrible it was. It was that catalytic moment that we all diverted into that attention. Now climate is doing it all over again for us 50 years later, and that's
that time now. I think this is the time for a new event. Like, I've been trying to put together an event similar to the first Woodstock. I've actually been talking to people all over the world about financing this thing. And it'd be perfect for layering into what you're talking about. Like, we have all these opportunities disguised as horrible events right now. It's time to start taking the mask off them and realize that these are our chances to make a difference. These are those moments that leave a lasting impact because we're just so ready for that information. We're ready to open up and accept it.
And you just touch on something that's interesting, especially that I've been using during these interviews from Earth Day and on. There was an incredible study that most people have not heard about that the United Nations did with a couple of world famous universities about how people really feel around the world about the environment, climate change, all these things. At even the levels of population, youngsters more than oldsters in the sense, 65 and older. But the commonality, when you broke it all down, is that somewhere around 90% of millions of people that were ultimately surveyed care about these issues,
exactly.
Want to see change. This is a sea change for the planet. And if there's ever a time, and this is when you talk about where did we come in all those years, well, we did in the 1990s for a whole decade. I was so proud of that, Eco Expo and the National Marketplace for the Environment and the Green Business Conference that I was in charge of. It was in 5 different locations across the country, LA and San Francisco and Denver. We had John Denver, bless his heart. They passed away, and celebrities and all those people helping us in Washington and New York. And in Boston, we were doing these every year for a decade, and it was incredible because we had 50,000 people coming on the weekends and during 2 days of the week, Thursday and Friday. It was a trade show in the trade show conference about products and services and how to help the planet. The green office, the environmental office of the future, the environmental home, the environmental fashion show, we were calling it eco fashion shows, and it was a heady time for us. But then it started to decline, and all of a sudden, climate became the big issue again, and another moment. So what I did, our capstone project, skipping ahead to now, and last year for Earth Day 50th anniversary, is that I created something called Making the Transition to Sustainability and the Inclusive Green Economy, which I have thoroughly, from being a professor of environment and energy and all the things I've done around the world and thousands of workshops and travels and everything else, I've come to the conclusion that the green economy is the solution for our economics, for the environment, for pollution, climate, everything else. And we have to build that and foster it. And this is the time that people are tending toward that. It's funny, millennials have said, we want to retire early. That's great. But then we also want companies to be responsible and have impact and care about the products and services. There's a whole bunch of driving forces that are right at this point, this inflection point in a sense, that will make a big difference. And this is what our big push is to go into any kind of institution on this planet, any of your listeners that have companies, nonprofits, educational institutions, government, military, it doesn't matter. If we can go in and help you make a seamless transition from the conventional technology, product, services that you're doing, methods of operation, supply chain, into this green economy, this will help the whole planet. And it also does something else. All this terrible terrorism, whether it's religious-based, mostly poverty-based that causes that, all the studies have been done in crime, and all these things that mankind's having to face. A lot of that can be released and relieved if we lift the populations of the world into a sustainable way that they can make livings for their families. Entrepreneurship, environmental entrepreneurship is a big deal for us. That's what we've been doing. I forgot to mention the most famous thing that we have done since Earth Day was on Earth Day, we created a 501c3 tax-exempt foundation with the Nobel Prize winner, Lola Robert Redford.
Congratulations.
Politician. And it's called Environmental Education Group. It's a major project, which I'm proud to say is now the longest existing impact incubator on the planet. Green to Gold is its name. Green to Gold. We've had 100,000 members. I've been on Oprah, Good Morning America, CNN, my own national radio programs on the Business Radio Network, a million different kinds of publications. And ultimately, this medal behind me is from the International Green Industries Hall of Fame, and they gave that to me for lifetime achievement. I'm very proud of that.
Badass,
And
man.
so we took all that understanding, technological, environmental, entrepreneurship, and everything else about the planet itself, Spaceship Earth. And that's what the transition's all about. So I just gave you a whole spectrum of some of my youth in high school through 51 years to now, and what we're trying to do to make this big difference to the inclusive green economy. Then social justice comes along, you know, and the whole thing about sexism and the glass ceiling and equality and all those are embraced by environmentalists. Maybe not all the Republicans as we've watched, but this is what's happening around the planet. And the handwriting is literally on the wall for this earth. And that is that we've got to eliminate warfare, one of the most tragic things we do to ourselves as a species, and then and take, tackle the climate issue along with all the pollution issues, and use the wisdom and the creativity that we have as human beings to make a fundamental difference and have a utopic horizon for us, for all the people on the planet, no matter where they live, and to work together and cooperate. This is our spaceship Earth. If I get I don't know if you have a break or something, I want to read you one of the most incredible quotes that affected me as early as 1965 about this, before I even launched my environmental group, and then, of course, Green to Gold and the Earth Day. I would love to read a quote to you that is so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, do you have it handy? We'd love to hear it.
Okay, I'm going to walk away for a second. I didn't have that ready.
Rush at all.
Yeah, we'll keep it going.
Yeah, he has the Bluetooth on, so I'm sure you could still hear us.
I'm really loving that artwork behind him, honestly.
I can't wait to see the NFTs.
It's such a,
could we convince you to get involved in NFT art?
We should, listen. I would love
to show you how it's done.
Okay, look at this. This is, since we're talking about it, this is the artwork I did about solid waste. This is one of these 7 projects that are on permanent display in Stockholm at the site of the UN conference of the first one. This is on solid waste. Yeah, I'm just showing you a few of them. I won't bore you. This was about
This
aircraft.
is not boring us, I swear.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, this is awesome. I love this.
Do you know a 747 burns 4,000 gallons per hour of fuel? Just think of how many millions of plane flights there are. This was one of my real famous things was Energy Options for Man, which became a report that went to everybody in the United Nations and was part of what I told you, the book Energy, Earth, and Everyone that we did. And then finally, and you could see my activism coming from the 60s, this was the Technology versus the Environment about war and weapons and what we're doing to the planet. And we took it from that perspective, not just killing human beings and everything, which is horrible, but that. And then the worst thing of all is considering that 20 million people a year on this planet still starve to death. Children, adults, seniors, and it's unacceptable. And so that's why there's got to be some holistic solution. Here's my quote. Should I do it right now?
Yes, please.
Okay. And what was so cool is that where it came from and who did it, and how it touched me in 1964, like 5 years before I was really getting into the environmental stuff, because I thought I was going to be this incredible designer of the future, buildings and cars and aircraft, and that was where I was going because of General Motors and the scholarship and everything. But this was called Spaceship Earth, by Adlai Stevenson. Adlai Stevenson was one of the most brilliant statespersons in the whole history of statesmanship, and he was the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations in 1964. And listen to this, it's on my letterhead and everything else. We traveled together, passengers on a little spaceship, dependent on its vulnerable reserves of air and soil, all committed for our safety, to its security and peace, preserved from annihilation only by the care, the work, and I will say, the love we give our fragile craft. We cannot maintain it half fortunate, half miserable, half confident, half despairing, half slave to the ancient enemies of man, half free and in the liberation of resources undreamed of until this day. No craft, no crew can travel safely with such vast contradictions. On their resolution depends the survival of us all. And it just touched me so deeply that in that one paragraph it summarized our plight, even more so because he did that before we got to Earth Day, and we understood what we were doing to the planet and climate change and everything else. And it's just a remarkable understanding of all of us, the human species with millions of other life forms interconnected in the ecosystem, the biosphere, that we have to treasure, we have to take care of. It's up to all of us.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, after all, we are just on a rock flying through space.
Yeah, but unfortunately,
there's not much security other than each other. We need to help each other and help the planet survive, you know?
Yeah, but unfortunately, bro, everybody wants to build a lifeboat instead of taking care of the main ship.
That's such a good point. Yeah, we're all just trying to escape like it's a sinking ship instead of actually, you know, preserving the boat.
Yeah, man, it's very unfortunate because there's a lot more money invested in getting out of Dodge than there is in taking care of the place they're already at.
It's incredible how much money's invested in escaping and destroying what we have. It's like that play The Producers a long time ago where they made more money on a flop than they did a success. Unfortunately, some companies on Earth have that setup right now.
You know, Alan, you touched on something earlier about corporate cooperation. And I feel like we're seeing that now in 2021 more than probably ever when it comes to, businesses like Starbucks getting rid of plastic straws, Walmart's announcing they're getting rid of plastic bags. A lot of businesses are kind of stepping up to the plate. And I think it's due to peer pressure. But I'm curious, maybe what your thoughts are on the inspirations these businesses are having to sort of conforming to giving a shit about the environment. It looks more like pandering than it does just, but I'm just curious. I'm just happy that they're doing it, in general, but I'm curious what your perspectives are on the corporate cooperation we're seeing today.
Yeah, that's funny you use the word pandering. It's still an old phrase that we use and still viable today. It's called greenwashing. You use your advertising and PR to make you look better than you really are, but your practices aren't there. But you're correct. Here's the trends again, this all coming together, this focal point coming out of this terrible tragedy of the pandemic and the awareness of climate. It's first of all the customers, the end consumer is driving that. Look, even, and this is current news right now, even in the inclusive social justice side that came out of the horrible Floyd situation, look what happened in Georgia when the Republican governor, did these laws that are limited in some other places now that are trying to limit voter participation and make it harder. And look how many corporations stood up. And it cracks me up that Mitch McConnell said that these people, these corporate executives should really stay out of politics. Well, that's funny, Mitch. You take money, all of you politicians take money all the time from your lobbyists and everybody else, to the corporate contributions to affect policy. What's wrong with a conscientious CEO talking in companies talking about what they think is right about social justice, inclusion, the environment? So it is the consumers pushing it. I will tell you, Wall Street is coming around. It isn't, remember the movie, greed is good. Well, it isn't always that. And so there's a lot of forces happening there. I will tell you a couple other barometers. For those of us that are fostering and encouraging environmental entrepreneurship and impact institutions, we're an anomaly on this planet in Green to Gold, that we help, inventors, entrepreneurs, innovators, small businesses that are trying to be green or green themselves and make better products and services and technologies and renewable energy and you name it. But we also are an anomaly in that we incubate nonprofits, more than 155 of them today that are socially and environmentally responsible, from autism to battered women to anti-gang to STEM to nutrition, you name it. It's just been incredible, that ride, and helping them get exempt, helping them get grants and sponsorship. there's a synergistic appetite between both the for-profits that we incubate, the entrepreneurial ventures that are green, and the nonprofits. There's also a wonderful thing happens between those. And but I will tell you that in the investing area, there's a trend over the last few years that it's absolutely remarkable. 4 major components. One is that in the Obama administration, they passed something because of the terrible recession and the mortgage meltdown. They came up with the Jobs Act, okay? And in that was one of the most remarkable parts of legislation ever done about financing, and it's called the SEC equity crowdfunding. And what it did is ignite a true revolution on this planet called the ability that every person, not just Wall Street or royalty or rich people or people that stole it or however they got wealthy, they have always been able to be that 1%er and keep building their wealth and all that. And the rest were kind of left behind because they had to make a living or they were in poverty or whatever. Now the whole world can actually invest into a United States-based corporation. It's called accredited or unaccredited. And this crowdfunding revolution, equity crowdfunding, it's not like the reward-based, which is, like Indiegogo or most importantly, Kickstarter, or it's not for the nonprofits and charitable and terrible disasters, GoFundMe. But what it is equity crowdfunding. And it's highly regulated, so there's almost zilch fraud, unlike all the other types of platforms for crowdfunding for the most part. And what it's doubling every month. The industry is growing because so many people were sequestered from the pandemic. Students couldn't go to school, they're on the computer, people are laid off, their jobs, whatever, remote working. So this has been a revolution within a revolution of the equity crowdfunding. And so even venture capital, listen to that, the bulwark of Wall Street and whichever you want to look at it, venture capital investing, now 5 times the size of conventional, 5 times the pace of conventional venture capital is what they call impact investing. The very kind I try to encourage for the last 50 years is make money, save the planet, or save the planet and make money, however you want to look at it. And a lot of this is flowing. Social ventures, nonprofit, philanthropic foundations, corporations, governments spending money to encourage these things that we're all talking about today, this new pathway to a new horizon for this.
It's almost interesting to see the mainstream media criticize businesses for trying to do just that. You see a lot of mainstream kind of highlighting the fact that companies that make messes are hiring subsidiary companies of their own to clean up their own messes. So it's almost like an incentive to make a mess, to clean up, because you're getting paid to clean up your own mess. And it's just, I don't know, it almost seems like you can't really change. You can't change for the positive after being so negative without having ridicule for it. And, I feel like a lot of big companies do worry about that, trying to, go with the flow of the mass consciousness and try to be a little bit more aware. And as soon as you see big companies do it, they're kind of ridiculed or made fun of, or it's almost like counterintuitive. We should be embracing these businesses, but people are mocking them for, making a better stance as a business.
100%. I applaud you for this, because that's why I called it making the transition. What's happened is, unless you're absolute criminal and are fraudulent in your business and you don't give a crap about people or the environment or anything, but other than that, this whole drive to make the transition, I try to look at, no one's really guilty in this sense. They were doing what, the petroleum industry, everybody was just doing what they were doing. They made tons of jobs. They had a revolution in science and technology and industrial revolution. It brought all the byproducts of pollution and climate change, and we know that now. But why criticize anybody that's making this transition at the highest level, lowest level, and in between, governments and companies and anybody in their own homes? And I remember during Earth Day last year, the 50th anniversary, as I mentioned, we were preparing. We had 100 organizations in our region, in Los Angeles and in the county in Southern California for this big event. And I remember in some of the organizing meetings, there were people that were criticizing, said, who can we have sponsored us and help us move this and make this happen to really cause more action? And they were going through all these lists. There was even criticism of Tesla.
Wow.
Had the revolution of electric cars, And then, so the one target that seemed like a lot of people were in agreement, and I couldn't be in agreement, is saying ExxonMobil. We can't have anything to do with them. They can't sponsor us. They can't. Well, what the hell? The whole point is the transition. If you ask for action, let it happen. Encourage it. Foster it. Buy the products that are greener, that are coming from product companies that are sustainable. Make your dollar as a consumer count.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dollars a vote for something that you love. I mean, if a company is the company with the power to change things is trying to change things, they shouldn't be criticized.
Yeah, and the investors that are behind it, whether it's mutual funds or Wall Street or this revolution in crowdfunding, they're even driving. There's even a trend for veganism or vegetarianism around the world for a lot of good reasons, health, but also mostly for the environment that's spreading all over the place. And there's even platforms for the crowdfunding, the equity crowdfunding, where even if you didn't care too much about investing and getting a return on investment, you could support that company that's making vegetarian foods for you that are organic, natural, pesticide-free, low glycemic and all that kind of stuff. These are revolutions within a revolution of crowdfunding, which is making one hell of a difference for us that are causing environmental technologies and enterprise and business. The biggest growth of small businesses compared to the corporates, mega multinationals, small businesses are making up for more than 90% of all the jobs that are created. 600,000 even during the pandemic in the United States last year and per month. So when you think about this kind of stuff, it's such an amazing matrix that is coming together that needs to stick together, coalesce. The media has to come on board, tell the stories honestly and straightforward and transparently. But the far right wing has got it wrong in many ways, and conspiracy theories and climate doesn't really exist, and all that stuff is, somebody has to counter that and shake them up. But we have to welcome them back into the fold of humanity and make this big difference. And that's why I love the transition statement and what we're trying to do, because everybody has to transition.
Everyone needs a road to redemption, a second chance. There's no reason that you should just write somebody off forever, because a lot of those people become your most valuable allies. They have, like, a lot of the reasons that we dislike other people is they're very good at what they do, just on the opposite end, and we don't realize that. They're very good at getting us riled up. So if we could use that to our advantage some way on another side, whatever that side may be, whatever your
find any commonality, exactly.
Yeah, just finding ways to help each other, like use each other's strengths to help each other, rather.
It's 100% right, guys. Boy, you're fun to talk to. This has got to be my most fun interview out of all the Earth Day interviews, and I've had some humdingers because you told me liberally could go where I want to, and this has been extraordinary. And the fact that you echoed this makes my heart sing. This is what I want to hear. And those people that are, the blockchain, that's a revolution by itself there. And all that's happening and what Superworld is,
but we're getting criticized because Bitcoin takes up too much electricity. It's killing the environment, and
but inversely, if you look at all
heating the planet or something,
Oh, I've been following
paper money and the lights left on at banks all night, and all the pollution created by people driving to the bank drive-through and everything. If you look at all the pollution associated with just finance, it far outweighs the good being done by cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency actually plays into this kind of greater good in the sense that it pushes decentralization. And that's, this for the greater good.
There was a movement, and I wish I could remember the exact name and see if they're still in existence, but one of the most profound organizations during the 60s that I remember they were very scientific and economists and everything else, and it used to be very telling and dramatic when they would announce something. They used to compare. I'll give you just one example that stuck with me for a long time. They took what it took to finance and build and the cost to make a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, one of the most awesome, of course, weapons in the planet, with the missiles and planes and everything else, and the ship itself, nuclear-powered aircraft. And they would compare it. If we didn't spend that money on that one nuclear aircraft carrier and the aircraft and all that, and missiles, we could build, something like 4,000 fully equipped schools for students. It's just a remarkable comparison of what we do in our priorities in the world and what could be done with that kind of effort. And you're saying it right. We should not criticize people that are making the transition, that are waking up, that their children. What's interesting about a lot of CEOs and people that I deal with that are in conventional companies, what I've heard over and over again is that their children are affecting them. They're pushing them. They're the future, and their kids are saying, we want green products. We want a clean environment. We want you to stop climate change, and they go back to run their mega.
Yeah, I call that carbon footprint guilt. I feel like I have it myself.
The power of redemption, right? Because these are people
we're aware. That's the thing, right? We're so aware of what the repercussions are of using a plastic bag for 5 seconds from the store to the car to the car to the for 5 seconds you use something that exists for eternity. That's
and no matter how ignorant
insane.
The parents may seem, they're still listening to their children over time.
Yeah, and that bag, by the way, that bag, as you know, that bag ends up in the ocean, in plastic islands and all kinds. In fact, one of our wonderful enterprises that was doing social work in Cambodia, the landmine horrors and all kinds of stuff, that they were trying to rebuild the economy and give women, fairness and opportunities. They came up, it's called Net Effects, and they were just on my program yesterday, our Green to Go Global Ventures program. And they were talking about this woman entrepreneur that created this. What they do is they mine the fishing nets, all that industrial nets that's like Kevlar, bulletproof, and they make them into the most spectacular, beautiful handbags, suitcases, carrying bags, and everything, and causing tons of jobs and fashion awards, everything else. And this is what the world needs. This is why environmental entrepreneurship and invents the future. And that's what we've been all about, and why I'm proud of what we've done in Green to Gold and the Environmental Education Group all these years. But this is the key. All of us kind of coming together. If we're in this terrible crisis of climate and about social injustice and inclusion and everything, let's come out of this pandemic healthier and better and more aware, and let's make that future really brighter than it is now. And that it is a change point for us. And I think you guys touched on that. This is the time that these disasters come together, and we're smart enough to recognize them. And enough studying is being done, and so many solutions. I can tell you, every time we write a pitch deck for investing in a green company, it always starts off, what is the problem? That we can enumerate the problem, and now we can illuminate and enumerate the solutions. And there are tons more really wonderful solutions than there are problems. And that's why I have faith that we can change this. Humanity can fix the mess that we're in on all kinds of fronts, and the things about extinction of species, and they say in the next 20 or 30 years, the polar bears will be gone because of what's happening with the environment.
Their natural habitats are gone, so where are they going to go? They're going to go with it. They'll be gone just as well.
Yeah, it's tragic. So that's why I have a lot of faith that this is the point. And with so many countries coming together about the Paris Accords, whether they can pull it off or not, but they're on the way. And it's filtering. Look at the Biden administration has come up with some incredible things to reverse the damage that was cut off from the last administration about the environmental laws, everything. They're spending money to fix this mess. Look what happened with water in that Detroit, that Michigan city. Flint, is it Flint,
Yeah,
Michigan?
Flint, Michigan, they still do not have fresh water as of
Go bad.
today.
Yeah. And do you know that right in my own incubator is a system, a technological system that can desalt the oceans for fresh water very inexpensively, but even more importantly, they can take municipal waste water and all kinds of water, farm water and everything, and make it better than EPA potable water criteria. And it's called the Rainmaker. It's a beautiful name for this machinery. Proven, prototypes done. Revolutions are happening in front of us that could be applied to all these and make, guess what, brand new good green jobs, we call them. And why can't we all prosper and be in harmony with ourselves and the planet? That's the question. And
you started out with the best green job ever, an artist. I think that's the greatest thing.
That's so true.
That's what a lot of us, that's how I started. That's how a lot of people watching, like, they're super involved in that world. So I think that's the best green job. And in a world where, maybe artificial intelligence takes a lot of jobs in the future, maybe the best solution is to monetize your own creativity and just become a good artist or just express yourself artistically somehow. And that's the best we do for the planet.
Great creativity. It's funny that you should point that out. I've said to myself all along in our Green to Gold incubator, gee, isn't it kind of cool that genetically I'm inherited or whatever it is, I have this incredible talent to be able to draw and paint and sculpt and express myself. And I've used it for these products and these political messages and educational tools and everything else in helping our inventor entrepreneurs and nonprofits. It is an incredible gift to be able to have done this and still be able to help people. You're right. The creative spirit of mankind is just, comes from something much deeper than most people understand. Yourself and in creation itself. But you're hitting something. I think the artisans of the world, and I mean that word in every way you can possibly think, are the ones that also paint the future. They paint what we could be and show us what we shouldn't be doing, and the wrongs of the world, and also show us the bright rights. So I agree with you. It's funny that it's poignant that you should mention that today. Now that I think about my own skills and what they meant to me.
It makes me think of the internet kind of documenting a lot of this, making, not just the industries themselves, but the individuals more accountable for the actions. It's not just local news, it's world news.
Yeah.
And it's not just something that kind of, may go away after the rain washes the newspaper or whatever. It's on the internet, it's kind of like...
you're going to find it if you look for it.
That permanent accountability that can be, aired like your dirty laundry all over the world. Corporations are held so much more accountable when there's an oil spill today as opposed to the 60s. You see, the stories come from people that are on the beach showing it from different angles, from their phones, not a pretty, press coverage, news reporter that's distracting you from the awfulness that's really behind her or him, but people that are filming the acts directly, showing you that, these animals are being affected or whatever the cases may be for these events. I really think that, it could have been a lot quicker to see if like we had the internet today in the 60s when you were trying to do this. I'm curious, do you think about like what you could have done if you had this technology back then? And I would like to say maybe consider using blockchain and NFTs as that point right now, as if like, having the internet as it were today back then.
I have thought many times when I got this, I grew up. Maybe you guys are obviously a lot younger than I am, but I had probably a million, I kid you not, faxes. That was the way we would communicate if it wasn't by a corded phone. When the smartphone and the internet came along, I said, what an incredible revolution. If we had a smartphone, and so many billions of people have smartphones around the world that instantly record what's going on and share it and everything, and social media, and as you said, the internet being the connector of all, a smartphone back then would have been just remarkable. I remember the pictures. I put together this amazing slideshow called The Ultimate Crisis and Solutions for Survival. And it came out of me being at that magazine, Environmental Quality, and all the things we did on Earth Day and the UN conference. And they sent me out across the United States to audiences like 10,000 and 3,000 and stuff like that. And even in Yosemite National Park, the Department of the Interior had me come there summers, and I would set up my dissolving 2-slide Kodak slide projectors with 140 slides in each one, and I would openly lecture about the problems of the whole planet. But then I was always different, and because I always showed technological and other kinds of solutions, personal, industrial, governmental, whatever it was that could solve that. So I was a little bit different and made me kind of unique. And I always thought about the power of these communication tools. Had I had cell phones, had I had video cameras at that time, had I had the internet, what a world it would, instead of showing this to people, we could have been spreading it to billions instantly. And it is a remarkable thing. In fact, doing it that way actually propelled me. When the Arab boycott happened in the 70s, I think it was President Jimmy Carter that was on board and at the helm. There was a crisis in America that it had never suffered before, where the gasoline was turned off, and in every city, all the miles and miles of cars backed up trying to get fuel. It was a huge crisis in America, the energy crisis of the Arab oil boycott.
Wow, I don't even remember ever hearing about that.
Yeah, but when it happened, it was everywhere. Every news, NBC, all the news stations and everything. Of course, you didn't have the internet at that time.
Well, that's why they control the narrative back then. That history is gone.
Yeah. Well, they obviously have the film of what was it at that time? They had the film of what was going on.
Oh,
but the
good.
remarkable thing, it's maybe you guys. This is also. You remember the Tonight Show? That had at that time Johnny Carson, very famous comedian and host for many years. Right after that program on NBC, The Tonight Show, very popular, was something called The Tomorrow Show. And they had this kind of gravelly cigarette smoking guy named Tom Snyder, bless his heart, that the day that happened and the oil was turned off and the gasoline was turned off in the United States and everybody was in crisis, they were trying to get somebody from government to come on the show or from the oil industry. There were no takers. But this NBC producer that helped me make some of my slides and everything for my Ultimate Crisis show remembered me, and they had me come to Burbank. And I went on this show and the Tomorrow Show, and they let me present my slides about all these solutions, okay? And overnight, incredible sensation. The dean of the university calls up and I want to hire you. Want you to be a professor, you set up the courses. They didn't exist. Teach what you want to teach instructors what they should know about the environment and energy and everything else. And it started that side. But the farmers across America really rallied because I was saying, you're the source. Bio-based economy, agriculture can make fuels that are not petroleum-based. Your waste materials, your crops, can make biofuels and all kinds of great stuff. And people just rallied. It was a miracle. Had we had an internet at that time, just think of how far we could have been right now. It would be sensational.
Well, that's what I think Nathan was touching on with using the NFTs for your art. Just like as you use the art, before physically to raise funds for your campaigns, NFTs open the entire world up at all price points, from pennies to dollars. Even free art in the space actually generates revenue. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Nathan could elaborate.
Crowdfunding,
Wow.
I mean, you program a royalty into your contract. I mean, it's selectable on each platform, obviously, but basically, if you give away something for free and they resell it, you can collect a royalty off of it. So from that, mechanism. You get $1, you're still perpetually making money that could be fed into your organizations to kind of fund different ventures.
I kind of think of it like this. Imagine those many posters that you've sold, the hundreds of thousands. Every time somebody resold one at a pawn shop or sold one to a friend, you would have gotten a 10% commission from the pawn shop every time. What would your account look like in funding in perpetuity if that functionality existed in the art that you already sold?
And then you could be contributing to your own, fund or message or anything, cause far beyond your own existence on this planet.
That's remarkable. Well, so you guys are on that cutting edge, that leading edge of this new type of currency, alternative currency. It is remarkable. We actually had an expert come on my program a couple months ago, I think, talking about this change, what Bitcoin and the NFTs, and it was about that big remarkable thing that was getting all the attention in every mainstream media and everything. Wasn't there some artist or something that was getting like made $30 million or something?
$70 million. His name is Beeple, and the interesting thing is he actually gave away a piece of art for free that sold for $6 million, and he earned 10%. So he earned $600,000 from a free piece of art that he gave away.
Yeah, you're right. Look where we would be in our humble little nonprofit, our tax-exempt organization, if we had that kind of funding.
That's the people we want to take advantage of these opportunities before big companies come in and make it not so community-oriented. Corporate attention taints a lot of things, and it happened even with Bitcoin or whatever it may be with the institutions being involved. But what we have now is an opportunity to do something that they're too big to even take a chance at. They're already comfortable, and until they get uncomfortable, they're never going to try any of this. So anybody that's at a chance that has any room for an opportunity where they're not completely comfortable, this is where some focus should definitely be developed.
That's fascinating. I guess when we're done with this program, we're going to have to talk to you about our incubator and actually explaining that to all our global ventures and nonprofits. That would be super cool. I will tell you that it is interesting that all these things, again, these forces are combining for a whole new future. And
we're in a renaissance right now.
It really is. It's just remarkable. One of my big heroes, two of the heroes I had in my life, Leonardo da Vinci, and then Thomas Edison, for whatever his pitfalls, and every human, we're fallible as a species. Everything we do is fallible, But given that, there are remarkable people that have done a lot of things to change mankind for the better. And they had the first green revolution, by the way, was about the concern of feeding a billion human beings in the 60s. And they had that revolution about greenhouses and mass farming and all that. They thought that would be the answer. Fertilizer. They were trying to feed people, and that science and technology happened. This next green revolution is in fact the green economy that I've been trying to foster for these 51 years. And it's starting to take hold in every form, from the crowdfunding, where everyone in the world can actually support those green companies, but also the remarkable angel venture capital, and onto the consumer and students in school that are so aware of this now and demanding the change, and they have a voice, the kind of voice I had in the 60s. And this is a remarkable, remarkable time. I've so thoroughly enjoyed this with you guys today. This is a great moment for me to listen to you folks echo back, your generation, echo back the sentiments that I have and my beliefs and where I think our direction should go.
Yeah, we really appreciate you for joining us too. We appreciate your time. I know that we were both super excited and even surprised that we were going to get an opportunity to speak with you. So yeah, the pleasure's all ours.
Yeah, off air, I told Nathan, I was like, how do we know this is like the real dude? This is.
Yeah, I was like, I've seen him. I talked to him.
I was like, is this real? I was so excited, to be honest.
It's so funny when I was, all the media that's happened to me, when I was on Oprah, Good Morning America, and CNN 5 times and all this. But Oprah was remarkable because I was there about inventing. They had the most amazing. She put a little ad at the Harpo Studios in Chicago, in the Chicago Sun-Times, I guess. And it was, if you have a great idea about inventing, try to come to the audience for the Oprah show. And when they flew me out red eye from LA and put me up in their hotel, and the very next morning I was driving him. They sent a limousine and took me, and I'm driving up. And I'm seeing these thousands of people lined up around the blocks. I said, "Is there some kind of a, event happening? What's going on?" He said, "Oh, the Oprah show is having something about inventing in America." I was just knocked out. And I come on this program with Oprah. I'm in the green room. You guys know what that is. And we're waiting. And sitting next to me on that same program was Dr. Fry. Dr. Fry is the guy at 3M with his team that invented the Post-its notes, the stickies, that have become $1 trillion business. And he said, had I known about you, Al, and what you do, I mean, we got like a gold watch and a raise, but we were all the co-inventors. We were hired by 3M. We worked with scientists and engineers and developers. And so, they made the incredible profits out of that. But it would have been nice to have been able to do that on my own as an entrepreneurial venture. And they could have, now they do them out of, recycled materials and bio stickums and stuff like that. But it was a remarkable occasion. But the bottom line is I get on this program and I bring the suitcase and I showed some of the products that have been developed through our institution. And Oprah tells 20 million Americans at that time, if you have a great idea, call Al. And put my phone number out, and I was doing a big event with Disney at Disneyland, an international show about inventors, entrepreneurs, and kids contest and all that. And they were overwhelmed at the switchboards. And that remarkable time on Oprah made it to the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and it said the new inventors. And we got like 10,000 instant phone calls. And
of course.
The nuttiest thing is that we have been trying to break through Wall Street for a long time to say, think about, we're the greatest R&D department on this planet, is this organization that's helping inventors and entrepreneurs. Why don't you tap into that? Why don't you license? Why don't you support? Why don't you invest in these? And there was a syndrome called Not Invented Here, NIH, where most fat companies didn't want to have any. They thought they had all the answers, and it was never true. But that breakthrough of being on Oprah and causing more media to happen as a result of that got us to the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and all of a sudden that opened up, that companies were willing to talk to us and think about ideas that could come their way from outside their own companies. And that's got to be replicated in the green movement now. A lot of companies that are making conventional products could make this transition and to license some profitable technologies that will change the world and energize it and clean it up. And there's such things going on right now that are really powerful.
I feel like a very similar catalyst to what you just described in this day right now would be probably trying to get a campaign going to get on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, which is sort of like the Oprah show of today in a different way that might be able to breathe in a whole new life's audience to the cause. A lot of people don't know, and I didn't till today, honestly, when I was talking to Nathan more about you before the show, there's a name to this cause. There's a person behind it. There's people behind it. It almost feels like it's been taken over by corporations that use it for branding and commercializing to sell products with Earth Day stuff. And it's hard to really see that, there's a community behind Earth Day, not a corporation. So I feel like the more your face is out there, the more people will feel comfortable joining it, right? Again, it feels almost like it's been misinformed to the masses exactly what Earth Day is. It feels like a corporate holiday instead of this, community-driven project that you've described today.
Yeah, citizen involved from the very beginning. The fact that we dragged corporations and governments along was what we needed to do. But you're right.
We got to get you back in the front.
I agree 100%. And it's not just me. There were lots of us that actually.
Right, all of them. When I say you, I mean the royal yous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones driving the movement, the ones with the heart.
Yeah, and there's a number of people. Well, look how many hundreds of millions of people literally were catalyzed by Greta about climate change around the world, and the protests and kids in school. I mean, we have some perfect, incredible spokespeople that can really take this. And we applaud any opportunity. That's why I wanted to, certainly was excited to be on your program.
Absolutely.
And all the ones that I had We had a couple of global platforms on regenerative agriculture that were terrific that I did this past week, and Earth Week we called it, and some powerful things, forces happening. It just, we want everyone to be enlightened. We want everybody to hear the truth and know what they can do, and that we can't settle for what was the past. We've got to have a brand new future that is sustainable for planet Earth, spaceship Earth. We have to do it. Or, can I tell you the most telling thing? If we're going to wrap it up now, I don't even know the timetable right now, but
yeah, we can wrap it.
I'm completely it's up to you at this point. I'm so this is one of my favorite conversations. I really do appreciate this. So yes, do go on.
I used to get excited to be invited to kids' invention shows and science and art shows and be a judge, over the years. And we had invented the Great Idea Contest, the Imagination Fair as part of what we do for kids, because I always believed that those kids being creative and encouraged early, like happened to me when I was a youth, and all those Scholastic Art Awards and science and everything. I wanted to see that happen, but I got frustrated because it was like this pat on the top of their heads when they did well, but nothing happened after that. They might win a few bucks or a medal or whatever. And there were such opportunities there. And that's why we were encouraging that, and ended up with the likes of Times Mirror and Popular Science Magazine and Virgin and Apple and all kinds of companies sponsoring during the 1990s during the Young Eco Inventors Contest, and it took off, and tens of thousands of kids would show up at the convention center and have these posters of inventing the future. And I was really thrilled about that. But none of that was as important and never sunk in so deep into me until I had my little son, who's 7 years old now, Quest, late in my life. And we named him because it's right for what he represents, whether an explorer, an inventor, an entrepreneur, an artist, and everything. But it didn't hit home that this future that I was concerned about and future generations was him. And now it is the most powerful motivator for me, and I think any parent, to think about what world are you going to live and leave for them that they'll inherit. Is it going to be something that's in harmony with everybody else on the planet and all the species and preserves our life support system? Or are you going to let everybody end up screwed up as we have been in the past? So that's the poignant thing that I just thought about right now about the future. Is the kids are the future. It's been said many ways, different ways, but I'm going to tell you, you don't feel it till you're an actual parent and know that this is what it's all about, and that's why I'm pleased that I did this program with you and was able to freely express these kinds of sentiments, not just be scientific and entrepreneurial and inventive or something, or political. So thank you very much for that opportunity to express myself.
Thank you. Really we appreciate you for sharing. Yeah. And I think it's really cool to raise a child that way, to teach them to really love themselves. If you love yourself, you take care of yourself, and that's kind of the point here, is if we love the earth, we'll take care of it. So Thanks for setting a good example for us.
Our only home, folks. That's it. However we branch out into space, and I'm trying to green the aerospace industry and space, exploration and commercialization. We have a whole project for that. But I will tell you, we got to clean up our own house act first. Yeah. We've got to do something about this so that it's sustainable.
Let's try to get a GoFundMe going with some kind of NFTs to make like a Biodome 2 movie.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I remember when that was in Arizona. I think it's still there, but when it was really popular, the biosphere, the biodome that they had there was remarkable. They were trying to prove, how you could build an environment that was sustainable, and it was a pretty remarkable thing.
It's pretty crazy that they actually maintained homeostasis for a while. I mean, it's proving that it can be done,
Yeah. Do you know when, last but not least, I guess in a sense, during the same time of the 60s and early 70s, some of the most popular people on the planet were on like the Johnny Carson show and those late night talk shows. There was Paul Ehrlich and, both Dr. Paul Ehrlich about the population bomb, the book that he wrote, and that he used fruit flies an example in the bottle that they would overpopulate themselves till they died off. You know? And that he was trying to make that analogy to what we were doing to the planet with our population growth. And then the Meadows, Dr. Meadows, they did this limits. The Club of Rome did the limits to growth, and they had computer runs, mega computer runs. And I once wrote a whole report about it, about us using up consumables and energy and pollution and everything else and water and where we were going. And every one of these massive computer runs that were trying to model that had it collapsing into this time frame, and a little bit later now into the future, that our systems would collapse. It was a hue and cry at that time. Did it get out? It got out on national television on a comedy type nighttime show, but did it get around the whole world on the internet? Not really. I wish we could recapture that kind of understanding.
Well, I bet you that with the power of NFTs and blockchain, Ken and I could show you how it's possible to do again right now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, if I touched you enough to try to help us do what we're doing and fight the good fight, then we're welcoming that.
We've had very similar conversations just amongst me and Nathan, on air or off air, about using this technology to gamify making the world a better place. Sometimes people need to be incentivized and encouraged to do good things, and I don't see anything wrong with that. That's why companies get tax breaks for doing things that are, better for the environment than the companies that choose not to do those things. If we can figure out a way to basically employ the unemployed or the homeless in a way that can monetize a campaign to clean the world, we could go from a place of where people are homeless and unemployed to a cleaner world and people are homed and fed from the same, ends meets the same goals. It's just using a technology or a metric to kind of build that on, whether it's companies giving gift cards to people that clean up outside, or people that live in areas that want to just use their own money and say, hey, if somebody cleans up that park, I'll give you that money because I want my kid to play in the park, but I work all day. I can't clean the park. We can do these things with this technology today. And a lot of people are doing it, right now. It's hard to find like an exact one, but Uplift, they're doing things in like Minecraft video games. And when kids build things in Minecraft, they earn crypto and they buy things and it all goes to charity. It's all like charity-based video game playing. And I just think
you had an idea recently as we were sitting at a restaurant in Miami, Ken, about how to gamify literally cleaning up the streets and how to get people to participate in that in a way that's fun and lucrative. And I think it would be really interesting to kind of spread that idea around and get something more global.
I will tell you, my son Quest plays all the time Roblox and also Minecraft.
Cool.
You guys are right onto something there. That could change. You could reach hundreds of millions of.
Yeah, Mr. Beast did something similar in Minecraft. For every tree a kid built in Minecraft, he planted a real tree on Earth.
Isn't that incredible?
Superworld's doing that too right now. If you buy a plot, we'll plant a tree in the real world. So it's like, I think it's a cool way to just kind of spread the love and influence and people putting their money where their mouth is,
Perfect. That's my wonderful, what led us to you guys was Superworld, that we're helping them as a venture. And I proposed to them at the beginning, couldn't you replicate what's really happening in this world, in the super world, where people would become aware and can make a difference in environmental and climate and in entrepreneurship for the planet and things like that? And they embraced it right away.
Absolutely.
And that led to this happening today, which I'm really thrilled about.
Yeah, I mean, imagine going to a playground and being able to open your phone and see what that looked like before somebody cleaned it up, and now seeing what it looks like today, or sort of having a filter throughout history. You go to the library to look at old newspapers, people are going to have that feeling of being able to do that digitally and switch through local images and be able to see what did this area of my, where I'm at right now look like 20 years ago. And be able to see not just the difference, but who contributed to the difference. There's a lot of data that will be stored on, these augmented locations, when you take out your phone and see a playground and see that it used to be dirty, you'll be able to click on it and see the information, who put out the bounty, who offered the money to clean up the playground, who accepted the bounty, who cleaned it, how much, and all this information is transparent. So it's almost like everybody could be their own Red Cross right now.
How about, or Greener Cross.
Greener Cross, exactly.
That's kind of funny. If you could go back and see when the XL Valdez, clobbered the oil spill in Alaska in the terrible destruction, and come back and see how they cleaned it up and who did that, and I see what you're saying. It would be remarkable, real time, to be able to witness time pass, the evolution of the problem into solutions.
And eliminate waste, like there's a lot of government money waste that goes into corporations that aren't doing as much as they say they are. They're not cleaning up as much as they say. They're not working as hard as they promised. So that's another way to provide that transparency and also immutability, and saying like, look, no, here's proof that can't be changed that you did or didn't do this job. And then here's award or lack thereut because of it.
Accountability. We've heard that a lot recently.
Absolutely.
Accountability for all of this, that would, but again, with a transition in mind, and unless they're guilty of fraud or criminal activity, everybody has a right to help.
Accountability goes both ways. You should have accountability for the negatives, the impacts that you make, and also have accountability for the positive impacts that you make.
Right. Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, this has been just thrilling.
I was waiting for him to say he had to go to the bathroom or something.
We'll let you
go. Gotta go. Alan, this has been great.
Yeah, it's been incredible. I'll stay in contact. We'll set up a meeting to kind of talk to you and your team about how you could use NFTs to change the entire world. So,
thank you for this opportunity and what you're doing and how you expressed it. It's it just makes my heart sing. I always felt that the seeds that we planted on Earth Day and beyond would grow to some incredible oak trees and help the environment. And you're representing that philosophy right now. So I really
thanks, man.
I commend you guys.
I wish I could hug you right now.
I'm fully vaccinated, so I can be.
I just passed the COVID test like yesterday, so I'm good. I've got to get vaccinated at a point for sure. My wife's in medical school, so she's good.
Good. All right, guys, so thank you so much for today and for helping the future now.
Absolutely, man. Love and respect to you. Do you want to give anybody your handles, your Twitter, your Instagram, email, any way they can reach you?
Thank you for that. I think the best way is to reach us at green with a number 2, the color green, of course, with the numeral 2, green to gold, the gold color, .org, our nonprofit, green2gold.org.
Nice.
And that's the best way to try to find us and what we're doing and how to get a hold of me, and that would be super.
Absolutely. Well, we can't wait to have you back. And this has been incredible. That's been the show, everybody. Ken, you want to take us out? You're the best at it.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody in the live stream tuning into the chat. We had an amazing amount of engagement from the community in the live stream. Sorry we didn't bring in many questions or topics from the live stream today. We just wanted to keep it as a natural flow as possible. Appreciate all the shares and retweets. I mean, we practically hit 900 live stream viewers at one point. So just thank you all for the positive vibes. Check out the website. I posted the link in the comments. It's right there. It's green2gold.org, and sign up for the newsletter. I see that there's a sign up form or something right there. As soon as I clicked it, I signed up. So I did that.
I'll sign up too,
and the website looks nice.
And anybody that has a great green idea for a new product, service in almost every field, we're here. We're about trying to help your venture, your idea get protected, developed, and commercialized, and make a difference in the world. So I welcome all that.
That's really beautiful, man.
Well, Green to Gold is probably going to have to rebrand from Green to Gold to Green to Bitcoin when we get done with you, hopefully. Alan,
we'll have a division of that. Okay. So peace. That was the V that we used to have in the 60s. Peace to everybody.
Man. Peace and love to you, and we'll talk to you soon. I appreciate it.
Think about that planet, this home that you have, the precious earth. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. I appreciate your time very much. Everybody have a day. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Hello, happy bros. Hey, you're about to get a face full of the Ken Bozak. He's a mentor. That's what I heard. He's a connector. Oh, yeah. He's a brilliant leader. I've seen it. It's Ken Bozak. Oh, happy bro. You gotta get some Bitcoin and hold it. Happy bros. You gotta get those NFTs and you gotta hodl that stuff. You gotta hodl it. 'Cause I'm Ken bro. We got your Bitcoin, bro. He's an original. Buy some NFTs and hold them. How many times does he have to tell you? Going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. Going to the moon. We're going to the moon. We're gonna get real high. 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 Yeah, we're going to the moon. We're going to the moon. Bro, we're going to the moon. Oh yeah, we're going to the moon. We're gonna get real high. Real high. Yep. Real high. Hello, happy bros. Come get some Ken Bozak.